Good morning. For the first day in a long time. Don't feel like watching from the sidelines.
Welcome to the Core Conversations podcast by Ampelis, where our goal is to help you fuel, use, and rest your bodies in ways that unlock its innate abilities for physical and mental health. My name is Robbie Harmon, and I'll be your host. Welcome to another episode of Core Conversations, where our goal is to help you fuel, use, and rest your bodies in ways that unlock its innate abilities for physical and mental health. Today, we have Tanna Fox back with us again. We're always grateful, Tanna, that you would be here and share some of your light and your knowledge and wisdom, and just grateful for that. So today's topic on that note will be a good one. And it's all about movement and the power of movement, activating our body's natural energy systems, how exercise and movement boost metabolism, help with mental well-being, all sorts of things in that realm. So we're excited to have the conversation. It's an important one. Yeah. And it's one that I think we all think about a lot. Maybe we act on less than we think about it. And so love to talk about some of those things, like what do we do if we're stuck or we're not doing what we want? And just excited to have the conversation.
Yeah, me too.
So Tanna's been with us before, but just in case this is the first time seeing Tanna, she's an international sports certified nutritionist. Yeah. She's a nutrition coach, actively working with people who want to make changes in this area in their health with exercise and nutrition. She's been a co-creator with us at Ampelis, both for content, group teaching, group workshop content, as well as a co-creator of Core 7, which is a nutritional product that we are so excited to share with you in another month or so. So many good things. Tanna is not only a source of knowledge, but like I said, a source of wisdom, applying that knowledge in real life situations with real people, which is why it's so fun to talk with you. So
thanks, Robbie. I'm so excited to be here. I love this topic so much. I love talking about all things health and wellness, but this one feels familiar enough that I feel like this could be a 5-hour podcast. It won't, don't worry. But I just love this topic because it's so critical to happiness, I think. So
I'm sure we're going to find a thread where I'm going to make a note and say, this is another podcast episode that we need to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So I want to start with, if we can, just to launch into this, like true or false myth busting set of questions. Can I?
Yep.
Just to launch us. Lifting weights makes women bulky. False. Okay, give us just a sentence on it. Maybe we'll come back to it.
That is like one of the biggest myths that circulates through women, through gyms and whatever, but it actually has such a little impact on making bulk in women that I don't even know how it began. I think women see how fast men can grow, and so they think that might be them. And I think we also have this visual in our head that we have to be small and thin and kind of, especially if you're in my age, like when you grew up in like the 90s, it was kind of like we had to follow these supermodels, right? Like the Kate Moss look. And everybody wanted to do and be that. And so we were always afraid of lifting weights, but nothing could be farther from the truth. Lifting weights actually, I think, creates a smaller, leaner, tighter physique overall. So false for sure.
Okay. We're going to get into some of those nuggets there.
Yeah.
How about you have to do cardio to lose weight? Weights don't really count.
Also false. Weights count big time. In fact, I think weights are probably one of the fastest ways to start to lose body fat if you're just beginning, because when you start to create lean muscle mass, your body starts to actually increase its metabolism. And so you start to burn fat naturally just by having muscle mass on your body, even if it's not working. So for sure, false.
Okay. So weightlifting can contribute to weight loss.
Yes.
Okay. No pain, no gain. I don't know if there's a right answer to that. That's maybe a silly question.
I loved it. I thought about this for a second because I was like, well, I guess if you go on a walk and that's painful, then I guess that's true. But there is something about pushing yourself to these extreme limits, whether it's a sprint or whether it's lifting something really heavy, where you actually can really increase gains. And by gains, I don't mean gaining weight. I mean just improving strength. So it's kind of both. It's kind
there's
of
some health. Maybe there's some health benefits from things that aren't like, you're breaking your back and you're
Yes.
muscle sore every day. And
Exactly.
okay, last one. If you're not sweating buckets, you didn't work hard enough.
That's for sure false. People sweat on different levels. In fact, I dove into this for almost a couple months because I had so many people. My husband, Bill, he sweats if he's just sitting there doing nothing. And so when you exercise on top of that, he's just dripping. And we would do sometimes the same workout, and I barely,
You didn't break a sweat.
don't break a sweat. But after some research, I found out that sweating actually has nothing to do with how much results you'll get from a workout. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
I know I've had those questions, like as
Yeah.
I'm working out and I'm not sweating, I'm like,
Yeah.
did I not work out hard enough?
no, sweating doesn't mean anything.
So interesting.
Yeah.
I was telling my family, I have an old friend that I used to work with, and we liked Indian food. We worked
Oh.
together and had lots of meetings, and we lived in
Yeah.
Chicago, and my nose runs when I eat spicy foods, and he sweats profusely. So like there's something about sweating not associated with
There is.
working out. We would sit in these restaurants and my nose is a faucet and he's like drenched.
I know.
Anyway,
See,
yeah.
it doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's just the way we work. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so
Fun
let's
question.
let's dive into this. Just tell us this phrase I used in the introduction: activating your body's maybe natural energy systems or
yeah.
energy sources. Talk to us about what that means as you hear that. And
I love this question because it gives us a chance to dive into what that actually means. Where does our body get energy from? So our body actually has 3 energy systems, and I'll keep this simple because I don't want to try to over-explain anything and then get myself, down a rabbit hole. But there's 3 energy systems, which is how our body works. The first one is this ATP system. So ATP is like the quick burst of energy, right? It's a few seconds, like single digits, which is if you have to push something really hard or lift or grab something. That's the first energy system. So there's 3 total, if I didn't say that. The second one, there's 2 more. There's an anaerobic and an aerobic energy system. So the anaerobic energy system doesn't use oxygen. It kind of is more of a carb base, like a fueling, like the way you eat really matters on how you get energy, right? And then the third one is this aerobic one where we do need the oxygen. We are moving constantly all day. So when I think about activating our energy systems, I start to visualize a very full day. Doesn't mean you have to be busy, but just a full day of movement. Sometimes if you're a young mom, it might be like sprinting to catch a baby off the slide. Like we don't want the baby to fall. Or, sometimes, I don't know if you do this, but do you ever take stairs 2 at a time? Kind of like bouncing stairs, right? That's going to tap into kind of one energy system. And then all day long as we're walking and moving and shopping, that's going to be the third energy system. So our body really does have more than just one way to move. There's different cells and mitochondria reactions and, sources of fuel inside our muscles and bodies that provide energy. So I think about diversity. I think about all different kinds of movement and realize that, gosh, we actually don't age because we get old from time. We actually age because we stop moving. We stop tapping into these energy sources that provide and give life to us, right? So anyways, I don't know.
that's
if there's
interesting
more.
to think about those 3, because then it sets the stage for, and I've never thought about it like that actually, but it sets the stage for different types of movements, and we will be most benefited by having some diversity where we're maybe nurturing all 3
Exactly.
of those sources.
And if you think about diversity, it's the key in everything. Like
Yeah.
we talked about gut health in an episode before this, right? You want diversity in the different strains of bacteria. When you're talking about different foods, you want diversity in plants. And so diversity is kind of this key word that should be a foundational part of all of the health practices. So especially in movement as well.
I love it.
Yeah.
So in simple terms, let's talk about like some engaging in movement
Okay.
can work with these different energy systems. Metabolism is kind of a word that describes how well or efficiently or quickly our body is creating energy from the things that within us. So maybe talk about how movement can boost metabolism. What's the relationship there?
This is a fascinating topic. This is what I think draws me to movement so much, is that movement empowers us to have an increased capacity. So if you think like, oh, I just wish I had more energy, it will never just come. You actually have to start building up and creating it. And so I think when you want to improve, like women, a lot of goals, men too, right? We want to improve our metabolism, right? We want to eat something and have it burn quickly through our body. Well, the reason why I love movement in this whole picture is because It's the creating lean muscle mass that actually stimulates your body's ability to burn more. And so sometimes when we think like, oh, I'll eat less and that'll speed up my metabolism and, I'll just burn through the little bit that I eat, you can do the exact opposite and slow down your body's metabolism. But when you start to really wrap your mind around creating lean muscle mass, putting in some of the work, your body starts to create a system that really revs up the fire inside at a cellular level. And so your body just naturally starts to burn and move, and you get more energy, and then you get to eat more, and which I don't know anyone that doesn't really love to eat a lot. Right. So it's a beautiful cycle that a little bit of movement will stimulate even more and more of this burn, of this metabolism, and lets our body create a greater capacity to move even more after that and to be able to consume even more, which I kind of like that whole idea.
So it's both the building of the lean muscle mass and maybe actually the act of movement itself is doing something there with our metabolism.
It's actually lighting up those mitochondria, the battery inside of us, of our cells, and allowing it to be able to just grow. And it's kind of like an anti-aging capacity to it as well. And it just has this ability to sustain greater life and more energy in that life too, which I really like. There's less, ebbs and flows of feeling tired and awake and things like that when we have a body that knows how to move and knows that it has lean muscle mass on there, and we don't have to it's not as transient, right? You kind of maintain a steady energy throughout the day when you have lean muscle mass and you have lower body fat, and that all comes from movement. So
I know one of the prior conversations we had, you talked about mitochondria being the powerhouse of, of the cells and creating energy, but you said something here about even, I think you said it helped maybe with our sleep and awake, like the movement helps. But the thing that I'm going back to that you talked about before is if movement and exercise is helping us optimize the function of those mitochondria, the powerhouse of our cells, that's powering it's not just about the ability to lose weight here.
Yeah.
Like this is all of our body systems.
Totally.
Our immune system, our brain function, all of this stuff is benefited by movement.
Especially the brain. I'm so glad you brought that up. That, to me, it was kind of a newer concept that I've been studying about the last few years. And it is the constant motivating factor, I think, that everyone can relate to, right? Sometimes we might not really care so much how we want to look in a swimsuit or whatever. Like, I get it. But the one thing we all can relate to is having a little bit more mental capacity, having less anxiety, less depression. So that alone gives us cause to want to move more. So I love it.
I do too. Okay. So, let's talk about different types of exercise. You mentioned like the ATP, the anaerobic and the aerobic energy systems.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, if we can, different kinds of exercises that may be best for firing some of those different systems.
Absolutely. Yes. I love this. And it's interesting because I think people always want to know, how do I start out moving, right? Is it just a walk is sufficient, or do I just start lifting weights, or should I go for a run, right? Things that everyone wants to kind of know, especially if they're getting started. But again, I kind of keep coming back to that diversity is the answer. That's also how we want to train. We've heard of, what's that word that everybody does? It's like a CrossFit, right? CrossFit is not the word I'm trying to think of. The word I want to use is cross-train. And that's the word. I get those two words mixed up all the time. I love CrossFit. I've done it before. It's great. It's fine. But really, we want to cross-train across all different types of energy systems, if different ways we move. So lifting weights is fantastic. Doing cardio, like a steady state cardio, is also excellent. And then sprints, or like high intensity interval training, but done the right way. There's a lot of times we go to like a HIIT class, or we'll do like a Tabata, and we think we're doing high intensity interval training, but that actually is not the true form of high intensity. So maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Maybe, yes. What is it?
Yeah.
Can we do a tangent right now?
Yeah, sure. Let's do a little tangent. I will never forget when I learned, sometimes when you learn things, you know exactly where you are. I mean, I probably had my second baby, and I was on a treadmill, and I was reading a book, because podcasts weren't that popular, really. Yeah. If they're even a thing, back in
18 years ago or 16 years ago.
16 years ago. And I remember studying these books, but I was kind of on the treadmill, and I'll never forget when I learned about true high intensity interval training. So my passion is sports performance. That's where I certified in nutrition, but I've always loved just working with athletes. And I'm not an athlete myself. Like I'm not a professional athlete. I just love it. I just love excelling in a physical state. most of the time when you go to a high intensity interval class, you're doing something where your heart rate's up, right? And you'll push for like a minute, and then you wait for like another 30 seconds to kind of catch your breath, and then you push again for another minute. And that's fine. That's a great way to train your heart rate training. But true high intensity interval training is incredible for your body's central nervous system. And this is what women need, and men, as we get older and older. And true high intensity interval training is actually where, in maybe like a 30 or 45-minute cardio session, you want to push to your heart rate's max capacity for about 30 to 45 seconds. And then you literally feel like your heart is going to explode. Like, I'll never forget the first few times I tried this, you kind of start to taste copper in your mouth.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'm going to throw up. I'm like, okay, no. But then after you hit that high heart rate, right? I would do it on a treadmill, for example, to kind of give you a visual. So I would crank the treadmill all the way up to like an 11.5, just sprinting. And I'd count down in my head, 5, 4, and then I jump on the treadmill and sprint for a solid 45 seconds and then jump right off because I couldn't even have enough breath to slow it down. But the high intensity interval training comes in the rest. So if you can hit the high heart rate and then rest and let your heart rate drop for about a full 2 to 3 minutes, it depends on everybody's capacity. The faster you recover, the better in shape you are. Right? So if it takes you 5 minutes, then take the full 5 minutes, let your heart rate drop to, I try to let mine drop to around 120. Your max heart rate is actually 220 minus your age. So if you're wondering, well, what's mine, right? We want to do age appropriate training. So for easy math, 220 minus 40, you want to try to tap into that 180 heart rate for about 30 seconds. And then bring your heart rate all the way back down, 100, 120. And then again, after you rest, let the heart rate come down, jump on the treadmill or bike or elliptical or whatever it is, and do it again. And if you can hit that a minimum of 3 times, ideally 5, but also no more than 5 times, then you have just done a true HIIT session. And the beauty of HIIT, again, while we're on this tangent, I'll just dive into it because I love it so much.
This is so fun.
Is you get this thing called EPOC. And I was like, that's the weirdest name. It feels like it's like a Star Wars name. But EPOC is exercise post-oxidation consumption. This means that after you do like a 20 or 30-minute HIIT session, like I can hit probably 5 sprints in about 30 minutes if I'm really just needing to
and
time.
Giving yourself enough time to rest and getting your heart back up. It takes about
Exactly. And if you're new, just maybe aim for 3, right? You don't have to hit all 5. But later on in the day, as your body's still trying to recover from that high intensity, you can get an extra anywhere from 400 to 800 extra caloric burn as your heart rate's trying to help your body recover, right? Because when you push really high, like to that max capacity where you, again, feel like you might just puke or you're going to pass out, right? And then you bring it back down and then you have to push it back up again and then bring it back down. That up and down, right? That diversity in that heart rate makes your body realize, wow, I just did so much work. I got to really recover. I need to probably consume a few more, hopefully better quality nutrients. I've got to make sure that I'm burning a lot of extra fat storage, which is why I also love it. I feel like it's a secret weapon for fat burn around that visceral fat area.
Interesting.
But true high intensity interval training has a place. And the beauty of it is you kind of become a little bit addicted to it. But every time I would do it, I've been doing this for a decade at least. I'm like, I'll never do that again. That was the hardest thing ever. Okay, I'm not going to do it next week. And then sure enough, every Tuesday would come around and I do my yoga and then I'm like, I'm just going to jump on the treadmill and just do a few more. And it really does become this natural boost of energy that your body becomes addicted to. And the beauty of it is that, again, it just starts to fuel all of your energy systems in the way that you can burn fat. You've increased your brain capacity at the same time as you've increased your lean muscle mass and your sprints. And it just adds this beautiful element to training. And it's so great for women. I think we don't do enough of it. And again, of course, men too, but I work with a lot of women.
Right.
There's a lot of women that take our classes as well. So sometimes I don't mean to, but I tend to speak directly to the women. But it is one of the most incredible resources to start to try. Yeah.
Does that really start to optimize your HRV, your heart rate variability? Because that
massively,
those people who are wearing Whoop bands or I know other devices are starting to measure HRV, and I've read a lot about how that's one of the strongest leading indicators for a bunch of stuff, like whether it's depressive episodes or whatever, changes in that.
Yeah. Your basic metabolic rate can increase, which is great. You want it to be able to burn more at rest. Your resting heart rate will also drop, which is really great as well. And then you start to get this sense of accomplishment, like just on top of that alone, which I don't know how to measure that. I don't know if they've ever done any studies about it, but you feel empowered from an internal level.
Thing.
Exactly. And so I just feel like and there's a doctor who I really love, Dr. Stacy Sims. I study a lot of her stuff and have for a while. She's actually done a couple editions of her book about women in training. And she also explains this really well and says that at least once a week. And that's the thing, is if you can do it longer than 30 or 45 seconds, it's probably not your max. And also you shouldn't be doing it more than once a week. And I can attest to that, because I remember thinking, oh, I love it. I'm so fast. I'm going great. I was going to work out with a big soccer team. And I was like, I just wanted to get ready. So for a season before I was training with them, I started to do it twice a week, thinking like, I'm the exception to the rule. It's going to be fine. I'm just going to get faster. And sure enough, I tore a hamstring. I didn't tear it, but I just started to push itself too much. So you don't even want to overdo it, so you can do too much as well. But it does. I have a lot of long-term marathon runners that I worked with in the past. And if you train like this once a week, it's equivalent to running maybe 2 or 3 hours cardiovascular wise, because the VO2 max, the blood that you're pumping through your heart, just accelerates it. And so then you can go for a longer run and train less with all the stress and the pounding on the joints, and still increase that capacity in your
That's cool.
Your cardiovascular strength. I love it so much.
There's a book that I read probably 10 years ago at this point, but I just reread it again or listened to it. When I say read,
of course, audio.
When I say read, now
audibles.
half the time, probably 3/4 of the time, I mean listened.
Me too. I'm the same way.
But it's called Spark, the revolutionary science of exercise in the brain.
Yeah.
And there's a chapter in there where he talks about this, and I'd forgotten about it, but he talks about like sprinting and just going fast and going hard. And same thing, he's like, most people, the dramatic, percentage of the population after the age of 30, most people never sprint again. And like we do, a lot of us ride a bike or we go jog or whatever, but like full out sprint. And same thing, he talked about how there's just unique benefits that come from that you don't get with the more endurance type of training.
Yeah. And it's a little awkward. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, sometimes I'll go for a run outside and I'm like, okay, well, I don't really want to go home and get on the treadmill. So I'll just like give myself a marker. I'm like, I'm going to sprint to that stop sign 2 blocks down the road. And if I see people, I just have to like run by them. There is a component of like practice. Yeah. It's a little weird, but once you start to get into the hang of it. So again, if you're starting out, try it. Like, if there's people that are listening that is like, I have not sprinted in 10 years, don't jump to an all out 11.5 on the treadmill, but maybe start at a 10, and they will love the way they start to feel. And then you get off and you're breathing, and you will just have a little pickup in your step kind of as time goes on and your body learns to adapt to that. So I love that part of training. I love
this. Is a fun thing, because I think this could be something that many of us probably don't do. Yeah. And we can incorporate this into our routine and introduce a sense of novelty, which is kind of fun and also tremendous health benefit. So huge. Glad we went on this tangent.
Yeah, I know. That was fun.
Okay. So, but back to where we were, there's these different energy sources. Diversity is good. I'd love to, so let's maybe to wrap up this topic, let's talk about the ideal state. Like, what would the ideal regimen for somebody be like to have diversity? Maybe there's not an ideal. And I know subsequently in the conversation, we're going to go into things, discussion about, well, what if it's hard? What if I'm just starting? And so let's set the high bar. Okay. And then let's come down from there, because they're probably going to get people that are all over the spectrum that are listening to this.
Which we want you all over the spectrum. Come as you are and find what feels exciting to you and start there. But yes, to kind of put a bow on that, like you said, so I like the diversity in training. So HIIT is one way that is incredible. Strength training is gold. Strength training is the most incredible form of medicine for the human body. It is lean muscle mass is the key to anti-aging. I'm signed up for all these, Tufts University, Harvard University. I get all their newsletters and have for years. And I feel like once a month, there's something that comes across my computer for lifting weights, because it is the fountain of youth. So do not ever underestimate strength training. And I think strength training also comes in this, we can talk about this in depth if we want to as well, but in the muscle, there's fast twitch and slow twitch muscle fibers. So we want to keep that in mind as well. We don't always need to just envision picking up dumbbells and hitting the weights hard, which of course we want to do at least 1 time a week. But there's also this slow twitch muscle fiber, which is kind of time under tension, or for women language, right? Let's think Pilates. Let's think maybe some more active, Shavasana yoga and things like that. But there is a component to holding something time under tension that starts to activate our slow twitch muscle fibers, which work so well with the fast twitch muscle fibers. And fast twitch muscle fibers are the ones that give us that quick push of energy. So strength training, both kinds of muscles And then this steady state cardio, which again, most women are also, and I think a lot of men are too. I don't know as much in my environment, but we tend to be cardioaholics because it feels good. Women are
You get the
naturally
runner's high.
yes, and we're just naturally better at endurance. That's how women are just made. And so we think that, oh, I've got to get in shape. I'm going to just hit the treadmill for hours and hours. But there is, and that's not what we want to do, but there is a component to like this, steady state cardio. 30 minutes, 5 times a week, 150 minutes a week that literally can also shift anxiety and depression. And every minute counts when it comes to this kind of movement that you think, oh, so, you think no pain, no gain, back to that question you asked earlier. And I was like, even if it's like 1 minute is better than no minutes. So you will get gain. And there isn't usually pain in walking around the house for 5 minutes,
Right.
So those are the kind of the 3 main parts of movement that I think will start to completely shift our body's composition and most importantly, our mental health and
So
our brain.
hit high intensity interval training, which I'm going to incorporate into mine now.
Oh,
Like I love that
it.
you said that.
Mhm.
And then
Steady
strength
state
training.
cardio. Oh, yep. Strength
training and steady state cardio. Can I ask a follow-up question
Yeah.
on strength training? So weights, I've often wondered the benefit of like heavy weights versus a lot of like body weight, pull-ups, push-ups, things like that are maybe more functional movements.
Yeah.
Do you get the same benefits, or does the functional movement stuff kind of start to bridge between like that time under tension, like you were talking about with Pilates?
That is an amazing question. And there's a lot of ways to try to answer that. So I'll try to stay succinct. So if I start to ramble again,
It's okay.
Just pull me back.
Ramble.
Just pull me back.
Your rambles are good.
So when you're thinking about moving your muscles, a lot of the times that is a big question. Well, should I do lightweight, lots of reps, or heavy, right? You can go and find whatever you're looking for. You can find science and studies that support pick up heavy. That is true, especially as you get older. Women, men, the older you get, you want to lift heavier. When you're younger, you can do better with more time. I wouldn't say time and attention. This is called
higher reps.
Thank you. That's what I'm looking for. Higher reps, a little bit lighter weight. The key to seeing the change is where you get to muscle fatigue. So that's why you're having to lift more at a lighter weight, because you're still getting to the muscle to fatigue. Same thing with a heavier weight and less reps, that muscle's still hitting fatigue. So that's the key factor that we need to look for in our weight training. There are times when I have 15 minutes, but I mean, it's 15 minutes. I'm already ready and I'm like, okay, what should I do? Should I read a book? I'm like, I read this morning. I'll just go do 15 minutes of heavy weights. So I'll pick up 30s sometimes. Maybe if I can, right, 35s, which is really heavy. And I'll just do like 6 or 8, and it's so helpful. But there's times when I want to pick up lightweight. So the key in that is making sure you work your muscles to fatigue. So sometimes I'll see women, I go to a lot of workout classes in my community and I love it. And we'll pick up 5-pound weights, and they've been picking up 5-pound weights for the last 5 years. That's a plateau. That's where your body's not actually getting any change. The fatigue's not happening. When we exercise, the goal, when you feel that hot burn, like, you pick up the 30, or even sometimes for women, it's going to be the 5, and that's great. But you can do 8 and 10 and it starts to get hot. You're like, okay, it's burning. What do I do? That's what you want to have. When that's happening, our muscles are getting these little tiny micro tears, very like microscopically. And if you could look at it, they just rip right open. And so when that happens, that ripping is what's allowing the new change to come in, right? We have to stretch to our capacity. I'll get on another tangent and I won't, but if anyone ever wants to take the elevator nutrition class, we talk about movement in class 5 or 6 maybe. And this is where we talk about this concept of being anti-fragile, right? We have to pull and stretch and push to create growth and change. And so that's the key in our muscle training, is making sure we take our level of stress, our level of activity, and push it just enough to where we can feel some of the burn, right? That's where maybe the no pain, no gain could maybe be answered true. Yeah. So anyways.
Did you see the Pete and Bobby challenge?
No. Did I miss it? What was it?
Remember the old presidential fitness
yes.
test that we used to do in elementary school?
Yeah. So, climbing the rope and all that.
The pull-ups and like the stretch.
Whatever happened to that? I loved that.
Away. I know. So they, Bobby Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, RFK, and Pete Hegseth, who's the defense secretary. Okay. They came out like a week or 2 ago with this thing. They went into the Pentagon, and they've got all these different soldiers around them, and their challenge was 50 pull-ups and 100 push-ups.
Wow.
First they said under 5 minutes is the standard, and then they said they rolled it out and said under 10 minutes. Like, we want everybody to try to be able to do this in under 10 minutes. And I see some of these people, some of the soldiers they're interviewing when they did this are like, yeah, about 2:40, 2 minutes, 40 seconds. So I tried it and I was like 5 minutes and 50 seconds. And then I did it again. It was like 5:30. So I'm trying to get down to that 5-minute mark.
That's impressive. I got to try it. No,
but I love that they're pushing
Yeah.
this, you know, at a public policy level, or at least trying to create a movement again back to some of this
brilliant.
activity-based training. But one takeaway that I'm leaving this conversation with is this idea that strength training also contributes to improved metabolism and weight loss. It's not just cardio.
It's so true. And while we're on this topic, I'm going to take a second to tell you about my favorite thing ever just in this moment, because I don't want to forget. But the reason that I have become so drawn to weight training even more is because of this concept I told you I learned about 3 or 4 years ago. And I was like, where has this been my whole life? But every time our muscle contracts, right, you feel that contraction, there's a little bit of a rip. There is a protein that is released called the BDNF, the brain-derived, neurotropic factor.
Yep.
Exactly. And for lack of better terms, the simplest way that I have come to understand this is that this neurotransmitter, or this protein that's released, goes in and strengthens our neurotransmitters. So if you feel like you might be a little bit, foggy, brain fog, right? And then a little bit of, anxiety.
You're dopamine deprived or serotonin.
Thank you. Yes. You're just
something.
kind of feeling a little bit off. Muscle contraction and lifting weights is one of the fastest ways to start to sharpen our mind, because sometimes there's traffic jams in our brain and these neurotransmitters aren't firing or meeting up as quickly. But the more BDNF we can release, it shortens those neural pathways so that our brain can fire clearer and sharper. And I have seen that, especially as I've gotten old. I mean, I don't ever want to admit how old I am, but I love it because I don't feel the effects of aging near as much as I probably could have had I not, been committed to lifting weights and active. And I feel like you can change that at any state. In fact, I just read a study this morning, kind of in just preparing for this, like wanting to know some of the newer studies. And Ben Greenfield in his book quoted this study where he talked about there was men, and I don't remember the ages, and I should, but we can link it if we need to. But you can actually reverse your aging in 6 months by 40 years just by adding strength training, which I mean, that's just one of the latest ones, which to me is fascinating. And that's because it sharpens the brain, but then your mitochondrial strength on the, cellular level inside your muscles really starts to fire up. And so that's why I'm so passionate about weight training. And it's not about size. It's not about, the bulk. You won't get that. If women are afraid of that, that does not happen. It happens if maybe you don't stretch, or maybe you don't do fast twitch or slow twitch, or you're, not exercising is maybe the cardio. Like you can find an imbalance, and you can always recreate that if someone's like trying to avoid that. But I just feel like there's endless benefits to weight training. And so that is just like
that BDNF
massive
concept. I've heard it described as miracle grow for the brain.
Yeah.
Like really giving miracle grow to all these neural connections that you want to make in these different neurotransmitters, but benefiting everything from like mood and energy and calm and stress, depression, but also ability to learn. It helps you make connections in your brain. And so did you ever hear that study that the case study of the Naperville high school?
No, maybe.
Illinois,
did I miss
outside
this
of Chicago?
Too?
No, it's an old one.
Okay.
But basically they had this innovative school teacher, a PE teacher that's like, we're going to do PE different. And we're not going to teach you to play basketball or soccer, because most of you, so what? We're going to teach you how to be have a healthy life. And so they gave them all heart rate monitors, and their goal was not to run a mile in under a certain amount of time. It was to get their heart rate to a certain point. And that's kind of where it started. And then they started to make it mandatory, this class, and their test scores at this school, nothing else changed except for they introduced this like period 1 or period 0 PE class where they were all having their own goals and getting their own heart rate to their whatever threshold. And their standardized test scores went through the roof.
Oh, like I believe it.
It impacted their ability to learn, get good grades, and perform well academically.
Oh, it's so true.
Yeah.
Like so I'm saying, I think I felt that before. I don't know if I've studied myself, but it's true. I feel it. I love that study.
Yeah.
That's so great.
That's in that book, that Spark book that I mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay. So you said this, we could do like 5 hours. And so we're going to have to be disciplined here and not go too long.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the relationship between eating and exercise. Cause there's a bunch of things here, like, not only what you eat and how that optimizes or takes away from your exercise, but also when you eat relative to your exercise. I think there's a lot of
Huge.
questions in all of this whole area. So maybe let's start with the kind of what, like
Okay.
important nutritional factors, things we should eat to get the most out of our exercise. And then let's talk about
Yes.
the when.
This is such a great question. I think I get asked this question weekly. Like, what should I eat before and what should I eat after? 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have answered this question differently. But I have come to be so grateful for these doctors that are studying the differences between men and women. So normally what we would say, is this typical answer, A plus B equals C, is not going to be that for men and women. We know now, thanks to a lot of the research that's done and some of these incredible doctors, that women are going to be a little bit different. And that by that I mean that we are okay to have a little bit of breakfast if we want to, that maybe fasting isn't always the answer for women. We're inclined to, intermittent fasting is a big thing. It's been big, ebbs and flows all the time. And I think naturally women think, oh, it's an easy tool for me. I'll just
I'm
fast
going to burn
until
more
noon.
fat and I'm going to
Exactly. But that's a study that's been done on men. And so now they're studying women, especially different stages of your menstrual cycle. It's not the same. And so if you're a woman and you want to know this answer, I would say get up and make sure you try to have a little bit of protein, right? A little bit of carb if you can. That will give you a fantastic workout. That's just generically.
Kind of pre-workout, get a little energy boost, get some protein or carbs or.
I think if you're for sure proteins are not negotiable. And if you want to add a little bit more carbs, I would add maybe 15 to 30 carbs, depending on how long your workout's going to be. If you're just going to do a 1 hour workout, I think protein's sufficient. I don't love drinking protein in the morning or having a big chicken breast or cooking some eggs before I'm going to go do a workout. So and we'll maybe talk about this later. You tell me if you want to go into this now, but like I love a supplement called an EAA, an essential amino acid. That for me is the game changer. And I can explain about why later, but I'll stay on topic. So women are great to have a little bit, like I think 15 grams of protein is the minimum to have before a good hour-long workout, right? You think, oh, I'm just going for a walk, I don't need it. But most women, working with women for now long time, this story is the same. I get up, I'm not really hungry. So I'm like, okay, well, let's do our lemon water first thing, And then they usually go for some source of caffeine, and then they usually go for a walk or for a workout. And what that does is that actually starts to raise our stress levels because our women just need a little bit more. We're not as inclined. Again, we're kind of more endurance based, which we kind of need that steady fuel, right? Men do better without food. And so women, I want you to have the liberty to have breakfast, right? I'm not saying when you picture breakfast, I think sometimes we think, oh, I've got the cinnamon toast and the oats and the cereal, but I'm just thinking get at least 15 grams of protein. And then, of course, move. That's something that I think is not negotiable. And of course, everybody's schedule is going to be a little bit different. And then after you've moved, even if it's a 10-minute walk, feel free to then have a really great breakfast. My favorite breakfast, again, of course, is high protein, right? I think something along the lines of protein. And then, especially if you've worked out hard, is to get some sort of carbohydrate in the form of a fruit right in the morning. I think it's the best time to know, when do we eat fruits? We know they're good for us, but they have higher carbs, they have higher sugar. So their fructose and glucose levels are not really kosher if someone's trying to have a weight loss diet. But I'm not in the morning. Grab it in the morning. On the way over, after my workout, on the way home, I had this huge apple from Costco and my protein shake and then a handful of grapes. And sometimes I have a banana, and that is the most filling breakfast. And then I just go on my day, and then I'll have the salad maybe for lunch or for dinner. But to not be afraid of fruit and to eat. If you're a man, you don't have to have breakfast. Men do really great with fasted workouts, cardio especially. This is where I love a supplement like an amino acid. I used to, again, if we would have had this discussion 10 years ago, I'd been it's all about a branched chain amino acid. So many athletes that I would teach and talk to would be use this. And it does work. There is a little bit of benefit to that, but more and more science is saying these essential amino acids, which are great, which are basically like proteins.
They're building blocks of proteins.
Exactly. Yep. 5 grams of these essential amino acids is equivalent to 30 grams of protein. So sometimes for me, just a scoop of that, maybe a little scoop of collagen protein to kind of give some peptides.
Just do it in water, or do it in a smoothie?
Just do it in water. Shake it up, and then I add ice. And if you start about 20 minutes, I'm kind of shifting the conversation from food to amino acids. Okay. But I love this supplement. It's a luxury supplement. So I want people to know, I know it's expensive and I know it's not critical for success. But if you are someone that does not like to eat breakfast before, do not ever then, if you're a woman, work out without some kind of amino acid. Branched chain amino acids are entry level. They're fine. But to really make a difference more and more, it's an essential amino acid, which will have all 9. That if you start it takes 23 minutes for that to get into your muscles. then if you work out, if you lift, if you run, if you sprint, you are reducing your muscles, disposition to eat, to catabolize, basically to lose muscle. And so I love a little trick like that.
You're going to get more out of your workout.
So much more out of your workout. And then you'll recover better too, because you already got those amino acids, floating in your system. If you have a low protein day, or if you're sick, sip on those essential amino acids. So again, it's not a must, but I'm just giving the most optimal situation. And then after your workout, do not skip protein. That's like protein for sure. And then carbs, of course. And then if you just worry about those two, your morning routine, the rest of the day will just come what may, right? Let's aim for 80-20 rule. Let's do our best to eat whole foods, but there doesn't need to be this strict science to follow. Just pre and post workout, really cater to what your needs are. And I think you'll see huge success with that.
Okay. So that you kind of answered both questions, like the when and the what. So we need proteins, particularly women. So women, proteins and maybe some amino acids before workout.
Yep.
And then certainly protein and maybe some of your complex carbs after.
Yes. And how much protein is a question that will follow up with that. People will leave on comments or whatever. I have studied and read so much about this. And so this is kind of my own easy answer. But I feel like for every age across the board, everything I read has followed this pattern that however old you are is kind of, that determines how much protein you have. So my 10-year-old, I might get 10 grams of protein for every meal. If you're in your 20s, get about 20 to 25. 30, you want 30 to 35. I'm 45, so I'm going for 45 grams of protein in my post-workout. My mom's 60. I'm like, Mom, aim for 60. That feels like so much protein, especially the older you get and you're not as hungry. That if you
what does that look like? That looks like a 30 grams in your protein shake plus
maybe a couple eggs.
Yeah, a couple eggs.
Yeah, 2 eggs one egg has 5 grams of protein, depending on the size, right? But this is also where I'm not afraid to supplement protein just in that post-workout. I think food first should always be our goal, right? I love all chicken and I love quinoa and I actually love tofu too. I know it's kind of weird and slimy to some people.
Tempeh and tofu, they're so
love
good.
it. I think they are. And I think if you cook them right, that's probably what's happening. If you don't like it, you just haven't had it well done, done well. But I love to eat my protein the rest of the day. And because I'm coming home from a workout or I'm on my way to the next thing, throw in a couple scoops of protein powder and don't think twice about it, right? Like you're not expected to cook up or if you're home, you're going to have the eggs and make the yummy breakfast and have some Greek yogurt and put some cottage cheese in it. Then if you're on your hurry in the afternoon, then supplement protein then. But maybe one meal a day, supplement your protein, and that will drastically improve your protein intake. Again, the older we need.
Particularly after a workout. So maybe a little bit before for women, men, optional before.
Yep.
But afterwards, everybody, you want to make sure you're getting your protein to optimize that benefits of that workout.
Exactly. And that's because, remember how we just talked about those muscle fibers that are ripping open?
Yep.
Quite literally, those are going to start to heal and close back up. Every 3 to 4 hours, our body goes through protein synthesis. And so it's trying to create proteins and build more muscle mass. And if there's no amino acids or these building blocks, right?
Right.
It can't do anything. So then if people work out and wonder, why am I not seeing change? I'm working so hard. I'm hitting the gym. Well, my first question is, well, how much protein are you taking? And are you taking it right after your workout? There are many people, again, you can kind of find what you're looking for. A lot of people will maybe disagree with me on that. And I've studied both sides extensively. And I've come to understand this, that if you are someone that is looking for just like a great way to be fit and to be healthy and to maybe, again, lower some body fat, then it won't matter as much, right? What time you eat your protein and when. But if you are someone that is seeking after, a change in body composition, or you want to see some lean muscle mass and really improve and optimize your workout, then for sure the protein intake matters. I've seen too much to deny it. And with working with athletes, sometimes we need like 1 pound of muscle mass just to shave off like a couple seconds of your time. That matters. And so I'm like, get your protein as soon as you can. Women have about an hour. Men are okay up to 3 hours, right?
3 hours after, you can still, okay.
They can still see benefits. But women, again, because we're kind of just this endurance space and we're constantly looking for something to keep us going, that's when we want to really focus on that post-workout within an hour at least. And if you've had your amino acids, sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm okay if I'm an hour and a half, if I've showered. Like today I blow dried my hair. So I'm like, oh, I'm really hungry, but I'm okay if I have 30 more minutes because I know I've got at least 30 grams of protein and amino acids from the supplement that I took in the morning. So again, I don't want to completely make people think that supplements are critical, but they do provide a little bit of benefit, right? If you're someone that's in a time crunch or you just sometimes aren't always knowing what to cook or have time to cook or get a great protein, post workout.
And as it pertains, because if we had to do another conversation just all about supplements,
Oh,
like
yeah.
different supplements and why these different multivitamin or vitamins and minerals and other things are helpful. But in this case, as it pertains to optimizing the benefits of movement and exercise, protein, amino acids, what about creatine? That's a big one. It's obviously
huge.
Now we're learning more about how we all should all take it for our brain, but what are your thoughts on creatine and for women, men, different ages?
Yes.
Before or after a workout?
This is a hot topic. This is another popular question that's coming. I love creatine. I think creatine is better for women than men. I've been taking creatine. It's so funny when I say this, Robbie, 20 years. I'm like, am I that old? Yeah, I guess I've been taking it since I was 25 years old. So I will kind of cycle on and off, but for about 20 years, because first of all, creatine's incredible for that sprint. Like if you're feeling like I cannot find the gas in the tank to get through this sprint, your muscles are probably low on creatine. So the second you start to supplement with that, creatine won't give you muscle mass. Creatine, as you know, will just actually allow your muscles to store more water. And when they have water and they have hydration, they have circulation. And when there's circulation, they can have a greater output. So creatine actually allows you to work harder and stronger.
5 to 10% boost
Exactly.
in terms of what you can do with your exertion.
Exactly. And your muscles are pretty greedy with creatine. So your muscles, you want about 5 grams of creatine just for the muscle support, right? For that ATP, for that energizing, ability. But if you want to see the brain boost, go for an additional 5 grams. And if you can do
up
it,
to 10 grams a day.
10 grams a day. I have tried to space mine out. I've done it where I'm like, I don't know if I'll be home this
Just
afternoon.
2 scoops.
2 scoops. Yep. But if I'm home, I'll just have another scoop in the afternoon, maybe like with like a green drink or something like that. I'll just drop that in so easy. And creatine has, it is the #1 most studied supplement above all. They say take it starting around 18, but I would be lying if I said haven't seen athletes that started around 16 or 17. I can't wait to see more studies on that. But it is huge. And there's a doctor, Dr. James Dino Colianto. I like his work because he talks a lot about timing. And he has taught that it's a great time to put creatine in that post-workout shake. Your body's warm, your muscles are open, your ligaments, again, we talked about those little micro tears. That's when creatine will just soak up into those muscles and really start to put it to work. So I put always 1 scoop of creatine in my post-workout shake, and I think everybody should. And if you're someone that's like, oh, it gave me a little bit of bloating, I don't feel great on it. I had a couple friends and even clients say, I don't love this. The first thing I'll say is, well, what's the quality of creatine you're using? Do not skimp on the creatine. Again, this is a wonderful supplement, but if you're just buying a cheap one, just don't buy it, right? You have to eat about 5 pounds of beef to get 5 grams of creatine. So again,
it's a lot of beef.
It's a lot of beef, especially if you don't eat a ton of meat, right?
Right.
So again, I'm like, don't be afraid of the supplement here.
And recommended brands. I use Thorne. I don't know if that's
exactly what I use too. There's a couple new ones that are coming out. Like I've been to some nutrition conferences and they have tons of new ones. The #1 thing you want to look for is a creatine monohydrate. That and nothing else. Like don't let any other fillers in there. And then start with 5 grams. You don't need it. There's a loading phase. You can, but you don't need to, right? Just start. And it'll take about 2 weeks for your body to start to feel like, oh, I do feel stronger. I can pick up 25 pounds versus the normal 12 that I'm used to picking up. So it will start to work and you will start to see more lean muscle mass definition. That's, I think, where it gets that bad reputation of like, or not bad, but
I'm
just
gonna
false.
bulk up. Yeah.
Exactly. Or women are like, I can't take creatine, I'll bulk up. I'm like, no, it won't. You'll retain a little bit of water, especially initially, but after 10 days or so, it's all gone and you will start to see more of that lean muscle mass definition really shine. So I love it. I'm a big fan of creatine.
And it's not something like caffeine where it's like, I need to take this and then have that near-term boost in energy or whatever.
Yeah.
Because hence taking it after, I've wondered that, is it better before or after? Because originally I'm like, if I take this and it's going to help me have more energy to exert in my workout, it should be before, but then I hear people counsel after, and it's so maybe it's more about that long-term buildup of creatine in your muscles.
Exactly.
Rather than I need it before so I can optimize this next workout.
You're exactly right.
It's a long-term benefit.
And it's kind of how ATP works as well. We're regenerating that constantly. So the creatine that you have yesterday, same thing with water, will help fuel today.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those things because it takes 2 weeks to build up. So it's not, people can take it before. Like there's not, no one's going to.
It's better to take it sometime than not at all.
Exactly.
But maybe optimally.
But the most ideal is to take it after. Yeah.
Okay.
What I studied. Yeah.
Okay. So how about, there's going to be people listening to this that are inspired by it, but they're feeling like, I am so far from having that well-diversified workworkout, doing
Yeah.
a high intensity interval training, plus cardio, plus strength training, plus taking nice supplements and
Yeah.
eating the right protein and carb. Like there are going to be some people who are like,
rightfully so, everybody, I get it.
and some of us are just tweaking on the margins with some of this counsel. And some people are saying, I feel overwhelmed trying to think about doing all that because I'm starting at 0. So maybe let's talk to those people for a minute and just think about, maybe give us some counsel about how do I start if I'm at ground zero without burning out and feeling overwhelmed?
Oh, so glad you brought that up. Sometimes I get so excited and I just think like, okay, let's go hit it hard. Right.
Well,
but
some
you're
of us,
right.
that's what some people want
Yeah.
is that.
Yeah. And then there's some that are just going to be starting out. And
Yeah.
so what I would have to say, if that is you, if that is the case where you're like, okay, I want to do something, I want to feel these mental boosts, never forget that even 1 minute of exercise makes a difference, huge difference. And so first thing I would do is take a look at your schedule, because everyone's going to have the excuse is I don't have time. But what we forget is that we are in charge of our time. Even if you have a work schedule, even if you have classes that you have to attend or obligations that are yours, you still have time. Like, we get to be the ones in charge. It's just, what are your priorities? And so starting small, we again talk about this in this elevated nutrition class that I just love. It's all about just going for something small. So if you want to start, one of the best things I love to do is just get on YouTube and start to find workouts. Like, find ones that you can do in your kitchen. Find ones that you can do in your bedroom. You don't have to put on gym shoes. You don't have to join a gym membership. That's a big ask, to ask someone to start to join a gym. And then you get to the gym and you're super intimidated because you don't know any of the machines. You don't know what to do, right?
You're kind of making it up as you go and
Exactly.
floating from thing to thing.
Totally. Like, I want a call here and there.
I'm going to do a little bit of this because that person's doing it.
I'd be lying if I said I hadn't done that before too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what to do in here. But honestly, get on Pinterest, get on YouTube, get on Instagram and start searching up 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes. Just add a couple minutes to your day. So I would take a look, rather than just take a look at your day. I think a lot of times we think we have to manage our time, but what we need to do is manage our energy. So if you have more energy in the morning, that's the time to try to fit that in. I can do so much in the mornings between the hours of like 7 and 9, but for some reason, every afternoon between like 3 and 7, I literally don't know. I couldn't pinpoint, what did I do this afternoon? I have no idea, nothing. But I could tell you. So I have learned that, and try to counsel people, that we want to manage our energy more than our time. So if you're someone that's really energetic in the morning, that's the time to kind of see if you can sneak that in there. Or if it's after work in the afternoon and you're ready to go and you don't have many obligations, put it in there. But first, look at your whole week, because again, we want to diversify. So it's not going to be the same thing every day. You're going to weight train probably twice a week, eventually, right? And then you're going to eventually do cardio maybe twice a week. And then you're going to have 2 really great active rest days minimum, right? And then a day to kind of do whatever you want, maybe go outside, which is really what I think would be the best. So first, look at your whole week and say, when can I do this week? Just start with one day. It's going to be Wednesday, and I'm going to put my workout shoes out. Sometimes I'm like, if you haven't really started, go buy a new pair of workout shoes, right? Or maybe just
I've heard you say that, like get some new workout clothes or something that makes you feel like I'm excited to put that on.
Exactly. Like, and Amazon has things on there that are so inexpensive. You can find a new workout top for under $15, and sometimes they're like $8. So, and they're great. They don't need to be anything fancy, but just find a way to get excited about it, and then start to gain a little bit of education. Again, listening to this podcast, or pick up other books, look up some of these other doctors, and just get a little bit of knowledge and teach yourself why this will be beneficial, and do it for you. Because you and I can sit here and teach them all the reasons why they want to change, but until that comes from within, then there's really nothing will actually really fire to make that a consistent change. And so again, we've said this before too, it's not about the result, about losing the weight, gaining lean muscle. It's about the lifestyle. It's about the routine. And so when you start to put that into your routine, who you are, what you love to do, when can you do it, it becomes exciting. And then it just becomes second nature. And that 2 minute, that 5 minute workout will then be 15 minutes. And there are hundreds, dare I say thousands of workouts that are 10 minutes, 15 minutes, beginner. Look on YouTube. There's a lot of also 60-minute advanced workouts, but you will find what you're looking for. We have such an amazing resource at our fingertips, very literally on our phones or our iPads or whatever. And there's no excuses anymore. Like, I don't know how, I don't want to go to the gym. That's fine. Just turn on your phone and you'll find something to inspire you. So
I'm only recently back on Instagram
Oh,
after
yeah?
like a long
Yeah.
time not having it. Because we're doing this,
Yeah.
these podcasts and things. And I guess it's picked the algorithms, recognize it, because my feed is just that. It's
Yep.
like there's a little 5-minute exercise I could do.
Oh,
And I
really?
go through and I just save like, that one looks fun, and I'll save them and I'll try
Yeah.
them, whether it's an ab workout or a
So
little
true.
whatever, plyometrics workout or something. But
Yeah.
they're everywhere, to
They
your
are.
point. And
It's
so,
easy.
and that makes such a difference. I was talking to my wife, Jessica, yesterday. We were out on a little hike, and I was asking her about this conversation. Like, what questions would you have for
Yeah.
Tanna?
Oh,
And we were
cute
talking about,
Jessica.
this, like, what do people do if they're struggling to just
Yeah.
start?
Yeah.
And we got talking about that, like the importance of having a plan and not waking up in the morning and then deciding what you're going to do. But maybe it's once a week you sit down and say, what does my week look like? And which exercises am I going to do? And is it this little video? Because that way I don't have to think about it. I'm just going to
Yeah.
push play and I'm going to mirror what they're doing.
Exactly.
Like taking some of that like decision making out of it by planning ahead, and then taking advantage of some of these free resources that we have.
There are so many.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that. And I think it helps too, to, even if you can't find a buddy to do it with you, share it with someone. Tell your spouse, tell your kids, like, hey, I'm going to start to do this 5-minute workout a day. And I don't have any shame doing them right in the kitchen during dinner time. And then all of a sudden your kids start to watch you. Like, one of the way that I have hopefully try to teach my children that, exercise is part of just who we are and what we do, is on Saturday mornings, we kind of would make it like this family thing. And more than the workout, I was more focused on like them seeing it being done, the pattern and the repetition of it happening every single Saturday. And I would be on the treadmill, or we'd turn on a video and do the same exact thing I just talked about, but I would turn on the music and I would turn on their music. And so the next thing you know, that exercise session just turned into a family dance party. And then for I don't know how many years, that's just what we did on Saturday mornings. And then we started putting like aerial swings and things like on the ceiling so the kids could hang on it, or they do cartwheels. And so it is so much about the pattern and involving maybe someone else, which might be the difference maker for us.
For sure.
Yeah.
It can be such a social thing, an opportunity to connect. And that's another thing that we talked about yesterday, was having something that, if you're not yet activated and started, having something on the calendar that you're working towards, signing up for a 5K or for,
I love that.
We're going to do this High Rocks. Have you heard of High Rocks? It's like kind of like CrossFit Games.
Are you going to do it?
HYROX. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to do it.
Oh, awesome.
In Anaheim in December. But so having something out there on the calendar does make you start to think about training and being a little more intentional and starting small and maybe working up towards it.
It's so good.
And I love that. But and doing it with somebody, I think, can yield a lot of benefits too, about connection as well, and making it fun and novel and something you
totally. And then it just becomes this pattern and routine. And that's when it's solidified, is when you can't, like, I don't always get this way, but sometimes I get that exercise anxiety. Like if I travel for like 2 weeks and I'm like, well, I haven't quite hit the gym. And I mean, I don't mean to be crazy, but I love it. My body craves it and it's part of who I am. And so that's when it's become part of your lifestyle. And that is achieving a healthy lifestyle. And then from there, the benefits just grow. So anyways, I love it.
So there's lots of tips in there. I mean, whether it's finding the thing on YouTube or Instagram and having your program laid out, laid out for you, clearly making a plan beforehand, not being afraid to just start small and find that one window where you're going to work it into your schedule and think about energy instead of time,
Yeah.
And then you talked about connection, doing it with somebody. We talked about maybe signing up for an event that you're working towards.
That.
Lots of tips. And I think that the key in this whole thing of not burning out is finding something that works for your circumstance and maybe your preference.
Yeah. And one thing to keep in mind too, if you start this and you're like, okay, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be so great. I'm going to be downsizes. Remember that it takes time. Like that study I just referenced, it took 6 months. That seems like a short amount of time to me because I'm used to working, it's been years when we sometimes work with clients, but actually be patient with yourself, right? Like it took years to probably acquire the visceral fat we're trying to get rid of, right? And the older you are, it doesn't necessarily matter how much lean muscle, it won't affect, but it just takes time is what I'm trying to say. So give yourself at least 6 to 8 weeks. Like that's kind of my marker where I'm like, you'll start to notice, excuse me, a little bit of difference around 3 to 4 weeks. That's kind of when you personally will notice. A lot of people around you won't start to notice until maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And if you've made it like the 8-week mark, 10-week mark, and then 12-week mark, you for sure will be like, wow, this is working. So don't get discouraged. Because again, you'll go to the gym and you'll come home and be like, I don't look any different. I just did that workout. Nothing's different. My shoes fit, my pants fit the same, right? My shirt doesn't, it's all going to you're going to think it's not working, but just stay consistent and don't give up. And then after, maybe 3 or 4 months, 6 months, you're like, okay, well, now it's not working anymore. I've seen some changes. I've lost 12 pounds. I've gained 5 pounds of lean muscle mass. Then take that as the biggest compliment that you just hit a plateau, because now you just hit a new normal. And it doesn't mean you have to necessarily work harder. It just means you work smarter. So now we use a different stress level and we're going to pick up a little bit more weight, right? It doesn't mean add another hour to the gym, right? It doesn't mean that we need to shift to this other huge heavy workload. So remember that it takes time, and remember that a plateau is a compliment. You've just achieved something amazing. So when people call me with a plateau, basically like, I haven't seen anything, I'm like, congratulations. Let's take a minute to celebrate that, because that is huge. You've just leveled up your fitness, your mental health, all of the, X, Y, and Z that come along with these benefits of movement. So just a couple little thoughts about that.
I love it. So good. And it seems like as I'm listening to you talk about this, my guess is that there are going to be some people who can get into a routine and stay in a routine for a long time. And there are going to be some personalities that like novelty, who probably need to mix it up just to stay interested. I don't know if you ever see that.
Very much so. Yeah. Like one of the things to kind of stay on that topic is to remember that patterns are what create more efficient movement, right? Same thing with eating, same thing with movement. You'll just fall into that. But in that timing of the day of when you do it, by all means, mix up, again, the diversity. I can't tell you how many times I've tried like a new class. I'm like, okay, I'm kind of tired of this, same exact exercise class. So then sometimes I'll just go and do my own YouTube thing, or vice versa. For 10 years after I had my babies, I worked out at home alone in my basement with a treadmill and Tony Horton on P90X. And I was kind of like, okay, I have heard these jokes so many times. I have them all memorized. Have you ever done a P90X?
Oh yeah, I love it. Bring it.
No. Yeah. So I was like, I can't do one more of these Tony Horton videos. And then I started going to a gym. So right around me, like 2 minutes from my house, there's this beautiful studio, Awaken Studio. And I've met a yoga teacher. So I'll flow with yoga for like a year, and I loved it, maybe 5 years. And then I'm like, oh, I'm onto my high fitness. And I love high fitness. It's a community. And I have a cycle class, and I've just learned. And now I feel like here I have curated like my favorite types of movement with different groups of people, and they add diversity. And I'm sure it'll switch in a little bit, Sometimes it's the season of outside. Like in the summer, I'm definitely way more outside. Yeah. And things like that. But in the winter, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to hit the spin class, and then I'm going to go hit the Pilates, and then I'm going to hit the sauna, all indoors. But yes, I think making sure that we stay aware of that it will need a little bit of diversity, a little bit of change, and that's okay too. So
you mentioned before some fun things that I think, some of us might cue in on creating like Saturday tradition with our family, start to model for our kids. So let's talk about family dynamics.
Okay.
Using that as a prompt. But do you ever encounter circumstances with clients where maybe a spouse isn't on board, or they're not eating well, or they're not exercising? And what challenging dynamics does that introduce? And how does somebody stay motivated if the other half of a relationship isn't?
Yeah.
How do you navigate those situations?
Those pop up all the time. And it's usually also the wife or whoever it is, the spouse, really wanting the other spouse to just start to care. And it's because they're worried. And so I think what I've learned in that situation is, rather than try to be the nag, if you're that spouse that's like trying to get your husband to help or whatever, is to first let the change come within yourself. Like I feel like I want to say this example, but I don't know if it's going to make any sense. But there's this analogy where you just want to stay by the tree and smile, right? It's a story about someone that's found a beautiful piece of fruit and they love it, but they're kind of getting made fun of for loving this fruit. And people are constantly mocking and laughing, but you just stay by the tree and you smile, because you know that fruit is giving your body good things, right? You know that fruit is giving you what you're looking for. And so I try to take that approach, like, if you will, stay by the tree and smile and do what you feel prompted to do. Follow the motivation that you have. And little by little, people around you will start to pick up on that. So that's one of the main things that I say to start with, because no one wants to be nagged at. No one wants to be told that they're going to die early, or they need to lose weight, or, all the different things. I told you so, and this, that, and the other. That just breeds contention, and that just breeds distance, and that breeds distraction, and that breeds, things that aren't necessarily full of light and truth that we are trying to seek after every day. And that can be a burden. And so if that's the case, I'm always like, well, just stay by the tree and smile, right? Do what you feel like you need to do. And that will become eventually a part of what that spouse might see. And then I mean, I've seen it. It's probably 50-50 so far. I mean, there's still some clients that I don't get that follow-up with, but at least 50% of the ones I do get the follow-up with, next thing you know, like I can actually think of 3 people right now where about 6 months later, I get a call from the spouse. Okay, so my wife is now doing this and I love it, but does this work for me too? And then we get a cater one for the spouse, right? And so it really is just kind of find an internal motivation for yourself, right? And then from there, let the light be contagious. And even if it's not that spouse that you want so desperately to be, it might be a neighbor, it might be a child, it might be someone else at that right time that needs that little bit of extra motivation or inspiration. And then it will come around, right? I think love is the way to breed, again, change. And we just said this, I said this before, but no one will change because someone tells them to. They have to change because they want it to come from within. So I like this little analogy of just stay by the tree.
No, I love that. And I think that's so true. I mean, guilt is not a long-term motivator.
Never.
It might be a short-term motivator for somebody, but it's not a long-term motivator until they see some, at your point, I think what's powerful is you model a behavior, you show the benefits, you let somebody else create a vision in their mind of what that could look like for them, and then have this intrinsic motivation to go do it because they've created their own vision by seeing the fruits of it in somebody else.
Yes, exactly. So well said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So how about let's go more into we talked a little bit before about gender differences.
Oh yeah.
So for women, whether it's like you talk about different workouts depending on where you are in a menstrual cycle or even perimenopausal or postpartum. Let's talk about some of those things.
Yeah.
Maybe we start with just female cycles and menopause. Are there different types of exercises that are good for those? Are there things that people should be mindful of in and around those things?
It's a really great question, and it's a really hot topic. Like, I will not sit here and try to pretend to be a hormone specialist, but I do know that women's hormones, especially in that perimenopause, are all over the place. And as we start to, so there's a couple people that are starting to do this, like they call that cycle syncing.
Yeah.
And you can do it with food, like seeds and nuts, and you can also do it with workouts. And the theory behind this concept is that at the beginning of a woman's cycle, estrogen starts to increase, right? And this is kind of the hormone that makes you feel good and excited and energized, right? You're a little bit more social. And that's usually like probably day 1 or day 2 of your menstrual cycle, right? When you actually start the bleed. And then about, 15 days in, everyone's cycle's different. So I'm just guessing, right?
Yeah.
That's when women get their drop of testosterone. So women get testosterone for 5 days in a row, just big drop. Men, just to state, they get it every day, all day, every 15 minutes. Like, it's constantly just dropping for them. But women only get it during a certain time of the month. And then after that, as they start to get ready to ovulate, estrogen drops, but progesterone rises. And progesterone is kind of the hormone that makes you feel a little bit more comfort, right? Like, you kind of want to stay in, you're not as social, you're a little bit more hungry because your body's getting ready to try to maybe create a new life. And so you follow that pattern, and it's okay to work out a little bit less. Or not to push yourself as much. This is the theory. And then it's okay to maybe indulge in like an extra 300 calories of maybe foods rich in magnesium, right? Like the chocolate that we all kind of tend to crave as women. And so this is kind of the reason why women want to do something like that, to try to follow those patterns. I have dabbled in it with myself, and I just have found, to answer the question, that what will make the change and what makes the consistent result is actually forgetting about the cycle and just finding a pattern for every single week, right? So I tend to pattern out my weeks. And then if I'm feeling tired that week, then I just don't push myself
modify.
as much,
Yeah.
but I modify. But cycles are changing. Like, I can't tell you how many girls' trips I've gone on and just finished a menstrual cycle and then 2 days later started because 2 of my best friends just started. Like, I'm always like, oh man.
So interesting how that works.
Isn't it so crazy?
Yeah.
It's just so nuts. I can't wait to get in heaven in that line.
Understand
and be like,
that.
Can you please
Tell
teach me?
Come on, I've been waiting to know
How
this
is
one.
every woman different? And what works for every woman is also different. I've read a little bit of research that sometimes that cycle syncing isn't as effective, but the idea was that when testosterone's dropping, lift a ton of weights and really take advantage of that and gain lean muscle mass. But I've just found it so inconsistent, and it's really hard to know unless you have a great relationship with your body.
And you probably have to track that.
Yes.
You gotta be like, yeah.
You have to track your cycle.
And, yeah.
You're exactly right. Get on the app and kind of know when you're ovulating. I mean, it involves words that sometimes men don't really want to sit across the table and talk about, but like, you have to track discharge and bleeding and aggression and things like that. You're like, okay, so it is something
Complex.
Thank you. It's complex, and it definitely probably has some science behind it. I don't want to say that it won't work. I think that there are women that have had a lot of success with it, but I have found in general across the board, follow a routine that's consistently building lean muscle. Your metabolic system, the mitochondria, your energy systems, your vagus nerve, those systems are constant. So let's strengthen and fortify those. And then if you get to the top of the pyramid where there's kind of these diminishing results, right? Then let's cycle sync. Then let's really fine tune supplements, training days, things like that. So that's my experience with it with women, and kind of practicing that. But women are a little bit different. I think one of the things that women can do that's different is to realize that our center of gravity is going to be more of our hips, whereas men, yours is going to be more up your chest. So as you're training, maybe doing compound movements that will strengthen your core and your hip base to allow your body to be able to move better, to create lean muscle mass more. Whereas men do really great with push-ups and pull-ups because they have their center of gravity is up here. So they build strength really quickly there. So, and that's just one thing. And then another thing is that women don't do as well with as much recovery time. Like, how sometimes you go to the gym and you will see a guy that's like, lifting bicep curls and he walks around the gym a couple reps and maybe it's few minutes more longer. And then he goes and hits it again. Women don't do as well with that. Women do much better with shorter recovery times. And so a woman wants to maybe recover so if you had to do like a 5x5, which is, let's say you want to do 5 reps of something.
So heavier weights, 5 reps,
5 sets. Exactly. Thank you. Usually, let's say you try to do that like within a 3-minute window. Men do so great with that. Women, if we shaved off a minute and they tried to do it in a 2-minute window, Dr. Stacey Sims teaches this so well. If they did it in the 2 minutes, they would equal the gains that men and women get. Whereas if women stayed at 3 minutes, they would not get as many gains as the men would, meaning again, strength, not gaining weight. I always clarify that because women are so afraid of that. And so I've seen it. It's so true. There's this one lady on YouTube who I tell all my clients to start out with her. She's this darling Irish woman. She's blonde. Her name's Caroline Gervan. We link her in the elevated nutrition class because she's like got these 5 minutes, 15 minutes, but she's a woman and she does heavy sets lifting in like 20 or 30 minutes. And I have seen so many women, my husband does it and I have another friend, her husband does it, and it just kills them because you're moving so fast, like picking up heavy weights and moving around. Men need a little bit more time to recover, but I'm amazed at how many women can just pick it up and plow through that 30 minutes with less recovery time, and their results are amazing. So, and again, men will see results too, but they just have a much harder time doing it. So
physiologically, we're different.
And women just want to get stuff done. Like, men do too, right? I know you are so busy and always so accomplished, but sometimes women are just used to like, okay, well, I got to work out. I got to do the laundry. I got to pick up a carpool.
Get the kids to school. I got to
get this work call. I got this deadline over here. Oh, and then all of a sudden your kid needs you, or there's someone, your mom's like, Mom, I need you over here. We kind of just move and adapt. So one thing to keep in mind is that we don't need to spend an hour in the gym. Just be efficient with your time. Do compound movements that are working you at the core and the hip and the back area. You will see strength come quicker and you'll feel it better. So don't feel like if you can't do more than 5 pull-ups that you're just a failure and you're just weak, right? It's just different. Men and women are built different that way. My husband and I will do the same workout, and sometimes I'll just plow through it really quick. And again, I told you I haven't broken a sweat, and he's over there sweating and dripping and walking around, but we both had a great time. So we can still do things together, even though we have a tiny bit of a different method underlying, in that workout.
Whether it's number of reps, the amount of weight, the amount of sets that you do, the amount of rest between the sets.
Yeah. Exactly. There's a few changes that can tweak. And again, that's kind of a more advanced theory. So don't feel like you have to worry about, I got to time myself into those 2 minutes and go. Right. If you're starting, then just start somewhere small.
I mean, one of the things that you said that stands out to me is there's these trends that you'll see. It's like the whole zone 2 training thing, or the cycle syncing or whatever. Which are, there's something there, like they're not nothing. However, that's for maybe once you get a routine and once you're already establishing the fact that you enjoy working out and have gotten beyond like a baseline level, then think about those optimization strategies.
And that kind of goes back to that same conversation about timing of protein. Yeah. Like if you just aren't getting enough protein, then don't worry about when you're getting it. Just get the protein. That's the base of the foundation as we move up that pyramid. And then the more elite or better you get at your routines towards the top of the pyramid, we're going to worry about timing and then even quality on top of that. So there is a place for everyone to start. So if you are ready to start, like maybe halfway through the pyramid, like you said, a couple minute tweaks, but if you're down and starting at the foundation, run with that, because that is the most important part about hopefully this conversation is just get in some movement. pick up the weights. That's the functional requirements that our body needs as we get older. We just need to do those functional movements. So stand up in a chair, sit down, pick up groceries, right? Like there's that hanging challenge where everybody wants to hang for 90 seconds.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, what? Kate? In my brain, I'm thinking, why is that so important? And I'm like, oh, it's because you're holding on to your body weight. When you have to get out of a car, those are functional things that we'll have to think about as we turn 60 or 70. So I kind of love that. So if you have to start out with 10 seconds and drop and then do it again, 9 times so you can hit your 90 seconds, start with that. And that alone will start to see this positive momentum that will change your life. Very literally, it will change your life.
This has been, I think, a really important part of the conversation, because so many of us, me at different times, like I will be stifled by not knowing the exact right thing to do, or the exact right routine regimen for diet and nutrition or supplementation or whatever the thing is. But I love this conversation about that, which is there are lots of optimization strategies. And the more important thing is just to get started, and don't be stifled by knowing exactly what to do or when to do it. Just do, like, take what you know and just start.
Exactly.
And
so
find joy in it,
that way.
and then slowly iterate to improve.
Yeah. And it will happen.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden you're like, oh, if someone would have told me, even when eating, like if someone would have told me, I think I said this before, but 10 years ago that I would have picked a date with peanut butter and chocolate chips and a little bit of sea salt over a Snickers bar, I would have been like, you're crazy. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I can't even look at a Snickers bar because I know X, Y, and Z that's inside of it. And I'm just like, no, but I really would have never believed it. Never believed it. And so believe that it's possible, and trust in the truth of how your body works, how your muscles work, and that things will start to change, and you'll be your own living poster child. People will be their own living poster child of that change. So
staying on the family theme for a minute.
Yeah.
Say you have kids, teenagers, or kids that are going off to college that maybe haven't yet developed that habit, or don't want parents like nagging them, or aren't motivated to do it. Do you have any tips there? I mean, your Saturday example of just making it fun and part of your Saturday routine is a great example. But any other counsel for parents who are saying, my kid, I know they need it, I know they'll benefit by it, but they just don't want to do it?
I know. And I could relate to this situation. And I think the thing that I have to say is that your actions speak louder than your words. So if I mirror that always, when the child is ready, they will come back and they will see the consistent patterns. Like one of the things that's a really big priority in our house is studying and just reading. Like reading is so important. And I can nag and nag and nag, but I have learned that over the years, if I read or if I leave my book out or whatever it is that's really important to me, and I'm constantly doing it, now some of my older children that are 16, right, 13, they've picked up that habit where I'm still kind of waiting for the 11-year-old to be like, oh, mom reads every day, So I've just learned that the example and the action of it speaks so much louder than the words, and they'll know. They'll know where to come back.
Examples again.
Stay by the tree.
Yeah.
And smile, because they will know exactly. And when they need it, they'll come back. Whereas again, the nagging will just kind of create that distance, and it almost creates a resentment too. So they're like, I just want to do the opposite, right? Like I want nothing to do with you. And I've just never, ever seen a positive outcome when someone just nags. Like, you'll do it for a minute. Like you said, there's that guilt. And so I think it's the same way with our kids. And, I just encourage and put out good options, and again, mirror the behaviors, and just live on a prayer. That, okay, they'll see that and they'll remember those efforts.
And when they choose, that's when it will become a routine and
Exactly.
a habit. It's not when you force them. I think we've wrestled with that over the years. Our oldest daughter, Bree, who just started school like Ava in college, she's athletic and she's strong and she does exercise and she cares about nutrition. But when we try to force her to the version of the routine that we think she should have, it's total resistance, and resentment. But then when we give her space and she chooses, she does so much better. She's more motivated. And
that is
I've had to learn that lesson, because we've tried to force it into, this is how it should be done and when it should be done.
Oh my gosh.
And she withdraws in those instances.
And I would be lying if I say I didn't do the same thing. Like as a teenager, my parents would say, well, I don't know, they turn off the lights or something like that. My dad's like, I don't want to pay for all this wasted electricity. And I'd be like, I'm just going to leave the lights on. I don't even care. But there's sometimes that, rebellious state that we just live out a little bit until we learn the knowledge of what it does to the environment when you leave the power on too long, and all the different things that come. But I can relate to that so well. So
let's see. Do you have any examples where you've seen somebody, and there's a couple more questions that
Yeah, no.
I want. I mean,
Whatever you wanna
there's a
go.
lot more questions here. Let's do an example question. Then after this, I want to come to sleep, exercise, and nutrition,
Okay.
because I think there are points in time in life where it's like, I'm trying to be good in all of these areas, but like I had to stay up late for work or
Yeah.
for homework or whatever. And should I sleep in longer or should I get up and exercise?
Oh,
Which is
that
more
was
important?
such a good question.
So I think,
Yeah.
but I'd love, just while we're staying on this, the power of exercise for a minute, just if you've had any, we'll call them, ideas in action or little by little
Yeah.
stories, but people you've seen make changes.
I have, and I think it makes me emotional every time. I think the biggest change is that a lot of my clients will come already a little bit active for the most part, because I started out with just sports performance and then it kind of trickled into gut health and things like that. But for the most part, most people have some amount of movement. And so there was a study that was done. I don't know if we need to go into the studies, but they talked about how people were kind of high fit, medium fit, and then low fit. And in essence, the study kind of showed that those that were high fit, they checked on them 40 years later and they had greater mental capacity, they had greater happiness, they had less depression. And so I'm thinking of a couple people in mind in particular, where they were kind of in that mid fit area, that low fit area, and they were doing all the things. Truthfully, a Pilates class, like maybe 3 or 4 times a week, right? And things like that they thought was doing a favor for themselves. Where all of a sudden we just shifted a little bit to like, hey, actually consider lifting weights. 2 would be minimum, right? Maybe 3 or 4 times a week, pick up some heavy weight, and then watch the body composition change. And a lot of the times we'd be lying if women didn't say they first want to come to try to lose weight. Like, it's a goal that
Right.
women have across the board.
It's visible. Yeah.
Exactly. And we're just, somehow it's just the way that the enemy can get to us, right? We think we have to fit to be this size. So a lot of times that's why they come initially, hopefully at the end of the experience, leaving with so much more about empowerment and mind and light and truth and how that makes a difference. And so those are my favorite stories, where there's someone's already doing something, but they're wondering why nothing's happening, why nothing's changing. So to feel, like empowered to pick up a 20-pound weight. There's actually someone even in the class, and we got this beautiful message, and she said, I never in my life would have thought picking up a 20-pound weight would make me thinner and stronger and more energetic. Whereas you have this stereotypical idea that that's just going to cause bulk and mass and make me hungrier, right? And so that circumstance in particular, I think it was probably 3 or 4 months later, the woman mentioned how she'd completely gone from 4 or 5 days a week of Pilates to 1 day a week of Pilates, started lifting heavier weights, and then doing like an outside walk, even though her heart rate wasn't getting up as much. And she's like, I have a better relationship with my teen that I was struggling with. My husband and I now go on walks together. And it was just this transformation. Again, it wasn't like one particular day. So it's, again, something to keep in mind. But it was over the course of me, I try to stay in touch with him, but sometimes I don't. And the next, 3 or 4 months later came by, and it was just this tears, just like, I can't believe how much knowledge can change. And I don't ever want to take credit for it, because it's not me. I'm just learning from other brilliant people and trying to share it. But I just was so grateful at that moment for the knowledge that's out there, for the people that are studying, for the people that are practicing, because change is possible. So that's one of my favorites. There's a few more kind of similar to that along the same lines. But
you're in such a fun position where you get to lead these classes or have one-on-one coaching, and then hear people's stories or experiences with this stuff, which is fun.
I know. I wish I never do before and afters, but I'm like, if I could do before and afters, it wouldn't be physical. Like, it wouldn't be like a picture of someone in a swimsuit. It would always just be like a smile. Like, if I could take a snapshot of their brain and the joy and the happiness that comes, those are the ones that really mean the most. And so there's a few like that are kind of fun. So
we've talked a lot about earlier, the relationship of food, between food and nutrition, food and exercise, rather. Maybe we can spend a minute talking about sleep and exercise, because I know for me at different periods of time, whether it's starting a business or graduate school or babies, where I don't get to bed until way later than I want, and I have to get up early, and then I have to, my alarm goes off, and I have to make that decision between, I only slept for 5 hours.
I know.
Am I going to be benefited more by an extra hour of sleep or workout?
Exercise.
Yeah.
Okay. That's such a good question. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think there's more people that have this dilemma than not. here's how I want to answer that, because I think the key is not one solid answer. I think the key is, what's your pattern of that season? If you are hitting that 5 hours at night, 5 days a week, and it's just kind of the constant, that I don't want to say a new normal, but kind of what your seasonal normal is, then I would always prioritize sleep. Always, always, always. Sleep is fundamental for hormones, for happiness, for strength gains, for fat loss, for sugar cravings, for blood glucose levels. Sleep is really what rest, like when our body's at rest, when we go to bed, that's when our body burns the most fat. That when we go to bed, that's when the HGH comes out and builds all that lean muscle that we think we're getting so hard at the gym, but it's actually happening when we're at night. So I would always prioritize sleep. However, having said that, if it's like maybe the one time where you're like, oh, it's busy time, it's busy right now. I stayed up a little bit later than I want, and the alarm goes off at 5, and you're like, okay, this is maybe couple times, like this one time this week, I would for sure hit the workout. And because I think that sometimes that can also mitigate some of those effects of sleep loss. And the thing to even pair on top of that is to maybe add an additional scoop of creatine that day. And creatine can help offset some of the effects of sleep. If you have a small, a shorter window of sleep that night, creatine can actually make up for it when it comes to the way your brain is working that day. So again, I wouldn't make that the normal, but I would for sure be like, oh, I'm for sure gonna like sometimes I do this on we'll go out, we'll say like a cabin or something, and everyone wants to get up and go for a mountain bike ride. But we're all up the night before chatting and snacking. The alarm goes off, like, let's just sleep in. But I'm like, it's a weekend. We're outside. I'm going to get up early. I'm going to have less sleep. I'm going to do the workout because I know there's so many benefits. But if that was my norm for 5 days that week or that month, then I'm picking sleep until my sleep becomes more of a priority and more regular. And then you'll see better gains. So
that's a really good mindset to have with it. No, I love that answer.
It answers the question.
Super, super helpful.
Yeah.
So how about, I hear things about exercise, whether you exercise in the morning or in the evening, and does exercise in the evening throw off your circadian rhythm? Or if you're trying to sleep an hour after you exercise, what's the relationship there between sleep and when you exercise?
Yeah, there's a lot of relationship actually. So again, this question's been going on for years, hundreds of years, way before I even got into nutrition. When I started studying nutrition and exercise, the answer was, do it when you'll do it consistently. And that really is the best time of day. And that still is true. Like whatever time you will do it consistently, that's the best time for you to exercise, right? So if you have an early morning and you can't get it and it's just spotty, but you can do it in the afternoon, then do it in the afternoon. That's going to be what's best for you. That was also based off of studies that were done on men for decades and decades, because men are so easy to study. I don't blame the scientists for studying men because they don't have the hormone patterns that are up and down, and they're consistent, and they just have they're just easier to study. But then when you start to study women, and we're now seeing women entering into these studies more and more, women are actually, they're showing that it's much better to move in the morning for a woman because and this is related to the cortisol, because when you wake up, within about a half an hour of waking up, that's when you get your biggest cortisol drop. And cortisol, a lot of times we're afraid of it because we hear that it's
stress hormone and
exactly. And it kind of stores the belly fat. And so get your cortisol down. But I love my cortisol in the morning. It gets me out of bed.
It motivates you to act.
It totally does. So I'm not necessarily afraid of it, but it becomes a problem when that cortisol comes at night or when it doesn't drop the rest of the day. And that's when it does add to the stress. That's the problem.
Sustained cortisol levels is the problem.
And so when we exercise, we know that our cortisol raises because our stress is, our body's, being asked to do work. Exercise is basically stress resilience, right? We're learning how to be more resilient with stress. So exercise is causing stress on our bodies. And it's a good kind of stress, right? But when that comes out, then our cortisol comes out. And then in the evening for women, sometimes it's harder for us to kind of get that to drop again. So if I'm answering the question for a woman, I would say go for the morning for sure. Like have a little bit of protein, get out, do something, take advantage of that,
natural sunlight in the morning.
Exactly. The boost you get, and then let your stress kind of detox throughout the day, right? Wind it down. Smaller meals as the sun sets. Maybe you don't have to move as much as the sun sets. Maybe get a nighttime routine where you have like a warm peppermint tea or something, right? And you really start to focus in on winding down so that your hormones can learn to regulate and you can have a calm, more restful night. And then let the morning come up and be energized again. Manage your energy, not your time. Don't get so worried about that. So I would think for women, I would say ideally the morning. Mornings. And for men, it's kind of just whenever you'll do it consistently. So That's my answer.
Have you, and we're going to talk about, we're going to do an episode on sleep with Mark Basil coming up pretty soon.
He'll be
Mark's
so
great.
great.
The post dinner walk.
Mm-hmm.
What's the science behind that? Because I've heard that thrown around and the benefits of that. And I think I understand it, but I'd love to hear.
Well, I love it because basically overall walking is your body's glucose disposal. So in an ideal world, dinner should be a little bit smaller. We should have post-workout be the biggest meal of the day. Then lunch should be the next biggest or equal to the post-workout, right? And then as the sun sets, our metabolism sets. So we want a little bit smaller meal. But even then, it's not always how it works, right? Like, especially in a culture where you have a family, sometimes dinner is your biggest meal because everybody's home and we sit around and we talk. It's a social thing, right? Or we go out to dinner with our friends at night. So if that's the case, then, which is more often than not, then your body has a lot more insulin than it really should be having before you go to bed. And as we walk, again, walking is your body's glucose disposal. So the blood sugar, the insulin spikes that come out from the carbohydrates or the sugar that's in our meal, when we walk, it literally just mellows that whole thing out. So a minimum of maybe 15 minutes, but up to 20 or 30 is so fantastic at lowering your body's glucose levels and allowing your body to not, just have that glucose storing around. Insulin is really more or less the enemy of like any fat gain. It's not necessarily, some of those other factors like not enough cardio. Sometimes it comes down to food and being like, oh, I just have too much insulin in my body. And so I love the post-dinner walk. And in fact, if you're someone that really does want to start to see a change, you don't know where to start, walk after breakfast, walk after lunch, and walk after dinner. Even if you just do that for 10 or 15 minutes every day and you haven't quite had the courage to pick up some weights yet, in about 3 or 4 months, I promise you'll lose 5-6 pounds just from doing that because your body's now picking up a new energy system and it's going to get more endurance. And then we'll move and shift to the ATP. Then we'll move and shift to the more anaerobic, energy systems and strengthen those. They all work together. But I really believe in that post-dinner walk. So
I thought I heard something too about it. The post-dinner walk helps. Maybe it's exactly what you're saying, but you talked about how when we're sleeping, we're burning fat and other things really effectively.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you walk after you eat, because you're disposing of some of those things in your body, you enter into that fasted state earlier, sooner. Right. It accelerates your ability to get into that fasted state, which is when all those gains start to happen while you're sleeping.
Exactly.
So it optimizes that little, going back to the theme of this conversation about movement, activating your body's energy systems. Like if you can take advantage of that little tip, between after meals and move your body, you get your body into that fasted state where you're getting a lot of those gains
so much quicker. Your body has less to digest and move around before as you're sitting in bed. Exactly. And so I love that. Thank you for pointing that out. That's actually so true. And I think one of the greatest reasons to do it right before bed too. So it's a habit of ours. I love it, especially as it gets cooler. Sometimes in the winter we just bundle up and I love it. So yeah.
We got a dog for Christmas and the dog has helped us have some regimented, we got to go out and walk the dog after dinner.
I know.
But I'm trying I never take lunch breaks. I always just working, but I'm trying now, if I have a call, if it's after a meal, it's particularly at lunchtime, just to take that call and walk.
Oh, yeah. It's the greatest thing we can do.
So helpful.
And again, that counts.
And the slump.
Every minute.
It's like you get the afternoon slump from the sugar spike of the meal. Yeah, you get the crash. Like that doesn't happen when you kind of getting through that faster.
You're exactly right. I love that. And it is such an easy way to take your time and your schedule that you are in charge of and add that. You're like, I won't have time today to get that run in that I wanted to. So I'll just walk for 15 minutes 4 times. Yeah. That's going to be the exact same amount of benefit on your body as a 45-minute run, right? So even though yes, we can talk about heart rate and things like that, depending on what you're trying to strengthen, but there is a benefit, especially when it comes to this conversation about insulin and glucose. It's awesome. It's just as good, especially the older we get. We need more weight training, more resistance, more training like that, more of that central nervous system, stress versus the metabolic stress of like hitting the weights, like tons and tons and tons of reps and long hours of cardio. Our body does better with that when we're younger, but as we get older, the walks do so much. So anyways, I love that. It's all so great.
So I'm taking away personally a lot of stuff from this conversation. I loved the high intensity interval training
it's
conversation.
So good.
That was a fun one for me.
Life changing. I know.
But so many things, regardless of where we are on the continuum of our exercise routine right now. I think there were nuggets in here for all of us.
I hope so.
And I think it very clearly also highlighted the relationship between our diet and our exercise or movement and our sleep. And you can't really optimize any one of those areas without at least thinking about all of
Totally.
them and how they relate to each other. And hopefully there were some nuggets in here on
I
that.
know. I hope so. It's so great to sit and chat
I
and
know.
discuss. And I get so excited about it. I always have this like rush of happy emotion that comes through when I get to talk about these kinds of things. So thank you so much for the invitation, and so great to be here.
Parting advice, ideas in action. What's of all the things we talked about, maybe, and I know there's so much you can't summarize it in a simple statement, but what's your parting advice for people listening to this?
Gosh, I think never, I mean, again, I probably said this again, but I just want to reiterate it. So I've said it before and I'm going to say it again, that never underestimate the power of movement. And that's the topic of this conversation today, is that nothing will help us age more gracefully and help our mental health more than muscle contraction and movement, and to keep the diversity in it. So, I mean, that is like probably the dumbest way to sum up all of that, because it is the conversation, but let's just get back to it. Like, there's no, simple way to put it. Movement is the best medicine ever, ever, ever. And so you'll age better. It helps with wrinkles. It helps with gut health. It helps with hair, skin, muscle mass, fat burn, glucose levels. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. And so I think that movement should be a part of everybody's every single day.
So good. And I love seeing, like we talked about, public policy kind of moving in
Oh,
this
I know.
direction.
I love
Like, let's
that. I
do
hadn't
this.
seen
Let's
that.
move. Let's
Yeah.
there's an interesting thing that a statistic we found a little while ago that showed that the average, I think it was middle schooler
Yeah.
today runs the mile 90 seconds slower than the average middle schooler in the 1970s. So, but I mean, these ideas, like,
yeah.
they're compounding our chronic illness problems. They're compounding
Huge.
our mental health problems.
Mhm.
And if we can take some of these ideas from this conversation and then model it in our own lives, so
Yeah.
we reap the benefits, but then model it for our kids, so our kids and maybe our grandkids start to see
And our communities.
communities.
Yeah.
It can quite literally, that's what I love. Let's talk about public policy. I love this movement because I think quite literally these simple ideas are a huge part of the solution to some very expensive and complex problems.
That is so true. Like, we are looking for a pill, a supplement,
Yeah.
This latest therapy, whatever it is, but really movement will solve so many of those things. And it doesn't have to be huge, doesn't have to be overwhelming. It can, but it doesn't have to be. And I think that you said it best. That's the greatest takeaway, is that it really will solve so many of these things that we're wondering why we're struggling with. So I love it.
Okay, so Tanna, we get the blessing of having Tanna as a recurring guest on this. If you have topics or questions or things that you would love Tanna to talk about in a subsequent conversation, please DM us or leave a comment, and we can try to incorporate those into our next conversation with Tanna, because you're a wealth of knowledge. We're grateful that you're willing to share it with us.
Fun. Oh, it's so good to be here.
Well, so good to have you. And please join us again for another episode of Core Conversations.
Don't feel like watching from the sidelines.